move into the next candidate, which is the insurance commissioner's race. And our moderator will be Heidi Holliday, who's executive director of the Rosedale Development Association. Heidi?
Good evening. I want to thank the folks that we have here tonight. We have David Powell, who's in the middle there, Don Seltzer, who is here for Ken Seltzer, and Dustin Morris, who is here for Clark Schultz. As you have seen in the previous ones, each candidate will be given 3 minutes for their opening remarks, and we will go ahead and start over here with Dustin and then just move down the line.
All right. Thank you for having us. Thank you guys for staying. I know you were really itching to see the candidates from this race, so thanks for staying. So I'm filling in for Clark Schultz. First, I want to start off with the Insurance Commissioner's Office. It's a working job. It's not a legislative position. They don't write bills. They regulate the bills that come out of the legislature. So Clark's time in the legislature, he served there for 17 years now. He was in this House. He was appointed to the Senate this year to fill a vacancy. But during his time in the House, he served as the Insurance Committee Chairman for 9 years. So that means he oversaw all the bills for nearly a decade that came through the House that either made it to the floor and died on the floor or made it all the way to the governor's desk and are now part of Kansas law. And that's really important to the Kansas Insurance Commissioner's Office because there's more laws on the books now than when those 9 years passed for him. And if we have an insurance commissioner that doesn't fully understand all the laws that are on the books that can be in office, it'll be greatly neglected. Outside of the Insurance Commissioner's Office, Clark works for a company called Land Title. He works as a auditor for the company. Again, that's another job that the insurance commissioner performs as well, going around and auditing the insurance companies in Kansas, making sure that they're fulfilling their promises to consumers and that they're also fiscally sound and not going to go belly up if they have a large claim against their properties. So again, I'm here filling in for Clark Schultz, and I appreciate your vote on August 5th.
All right, David?
I am David Powell. I'm a Republican running for Kansas Insurance Commissioner because I care about you and I care about Kansas. Kansas is my priority. This election is about you and what I can do for you. I have experience, I have knowledge, and I have a passion to help you and to help Kansas. I am a veteran, just mention that in passing, but I did serve and received my honorable discharge from the United States Air Force. I've been a Red Cross volunteer for 35 years, and I've helped many flood and tornado victims rebuild their lives. I will put my 37 years as an independent insurance agent who has worked face-to-face in all major lines of insurance to work for you and your neighbors. Face-to-face tells me more about your needs and concerns, and that is important to the Insurance Commissioner's Office. I'm not just guessing, I'm acting based on what you have told me. Today, not sometime in the future, but today I am working on reducing the cost of your insurance here in Kansas for your auto and home and your health insurance. I'm working to get uninsured motorists off the road. I'm working to bring new insurance companies to bid for your business, to earn your business, to compete for your business. I wrote the mandate law that was passed and signed by the governor last year, so I do know how to work with legislators. I've run a large business for many years, and I do know how to take care of the challenge of the staffing of the department. My health has been questioned. I'm a big guy. But for the 2 weeks ago, for example, I was out walking in 104-degree temperature for 4 hours with representatives going door to door. So my health is not a problem. I have read the health care law, and I've written a book on it. I know insurance, I have experience in insurance, and I have a passion. This is not just a job to me, it is a passion. Kansas needs the most qualified person for this job, and I've been qualified in all major lines of insurance. I'm not an insurance company executive. I'm not a one-trick pony with one area that I'm good in. I do know insurance, and I'm bringing that to this office. And I'm not a career politician. We've had career politicians in that office for the last 20 years, and it has not served us well. Since the next insurance commissioner will affect the lives and livelihood of every individual, every family, and every business in the state, I believe it's time we had an insurance commissioner that really knows insurance. I'm David Powell. I'm asking for your vote.
All right, thank you. And Don?
Donald Seltzer. I'm representing Ken Seltzer today. He's my brother. Insurance is a large part of our lives from cradle to grave. You get a Social Security card within days of getting a birth certificate, and you are often buried using proceeds from insurance. So this is a very important position for Kansas, and my brother Ken is running because he has the business experience and the insurance experience to fill this very challenging role. How the insurance office functions will determine how easy it is for you to get insurance over the next decade. So it is a very important role. To give you a little bit of his background, we grew up on a farm 50 miles north of Wichita. Ken had 6 siblings, myself included. He was the first in our family to go to college. He went to K-State, graduated in accounting with honors. He had to work his way through school because my dad told us he was unable to finance all of our educations. So he did it in 4 years. He did it with honors, and then he received his certified public accounting degree. So he's a CPA, and he is the one in the race with a CPA designation. He worked in that field as an auditor for many years. I can remember him coming home when he first decided to work in the Big 8, one of the Big 8 accounting firms. And he had a calculator, an adding machine actually, the old lever type. And he would practice adding up the numbers in the phone book because he knew as a junior accountant he was going to have to learn from the basics and do the basic work. And then they'd let him do more of the big picture stuff. And that's still his approach today. He really thinks in terms of trying to understand the job, the nuts and bolts of it, and making sure that he is able to work in the mundane parts of an office as well as looking at the big picture. He did get his master's and MBA, and he now works in insurance, has for many years. Over 30 years of experience working in almost all of the lines of business that the insurance department regulates. There are about 80 or 90 lines of business, and he has worked in almost all of them. So he has a business experience. He is also, he and his wife also owned about 4 retail shops in the Kansas City area. So he has the entrepreneur background, and he also, with his wife, owns a small farm in Miami County. So he has his roots in farming, and he still farms today. So he would appreciate your vote on August 5th, and thank you for supporting us.
All right, thank you to all 3 of you for your opening remarks. We are going to start out with a topic that has been in the news recently, so this will be fun. We have 5 minutes for each candidate to give their response to, or candidate's representative to this first question, and then we will follow up with several other questions as well. So we'll start at this end of the table again, if you don't mind, Dustin. And the question is, what are your views or the candidate's views on the Affordable Care Act, and what can be done or what needs to be done, if anything, to improve it?
Well, Clark believes that the way the legislature and the governor handled the expansion of the Affordable Care Act in the marketplace here in Kansas was done correctly, and we're seeing how in other states that they receive money to fund their own marketplace and it's not quite working out as well as they expected. Now with that said, Clark realizes that 57,000 Kansans now have health insurance because of that. And there's other candidates here that would like to see their main priority when they get into the office to be to repeal the law. Now, they can spend their time doing that. Instead, Clark wants to make sure that those people are educated fully about their options, not only in the marketplace with the federal government, but here in Kansas as well. Now, recently there was a study a few years ago that found that 36% of people don't know the difference between a deductible and a premium. And when you're having people go online and sign up for insurance that don't know that difference because now they have to purchase health insurance or face a tax penalty. Now, common sense would tell you that just because they have to purchase it, they're going to select the plan with the lowest premium. And when they go to their healthcare provider, they're going to soon find out that what they expected, because they didn't know the difference between premium and deductible, is that they still have to pay out of pocket for their health care. That's going to be one of Clark's jobs, is making sure that every Kansan purchasing health care either in the federal marketplace or here in Kansas through private companies has that knowledge when they go to make a purchase. Outside of that, if the law is repealed, Clark is ready to make sure that those Kansans aren't left out in the cold. Now, one of the other candidates who isn't here today, she favors all the laws and all the court rulings that have recently come down that would stop subsidies from going to states like Kansas. Now, if that happens, how are we going to deal with that? There's now 57,000 people that most likely received a subsidy that are left out in the cold, and how are they going to pay that back if the federal government requires that? And we're going to need an insurance commissioner that's willing to work across party lines, put away partisan politics, and make sure that all Kansans are taken care of.
Thank you. All right, David, it's your turn to respond.
Well, I also have been strongly opposed to the law for a lot of reasons. First off, I have read the law. I've written a book on the law, and I have found a number of the loopholes in the law that exist that have been used to delay a lot of the activity of the law. The addition of the people that got subsidies is going to be a real big problem if the 10th Circuit is upheld once it goes to the Supreme Court. However, I don't think that most of those people are going to be faced with repaying it, because I think most of them are going to wind up suing somebody for getting them a subsidy that based on the law. And again, every law that I've seen out there that's been written, the wording of the law is specific, and so you follow what the words say. And it says quite clearly, state-run exchange can have subsidies. It does not say that federal-run exchanges can. That was where the 10th Circuit came down, and that's where I believe the Supreme Court will finally rule. I think the biggest problem is that we had two groups of people trying to help get these people insurance. And we had some agents, and then we have navigators. Navigators were not as well informed, were not allowed to tell people the differences between the plan choices. And so, as I saw in the paper today, many people chose simply the cheapest plan. The statistics show about 80% of people chose based on price, not based on benefits. And when you look at that law and when you look at the benefit structure, a few dollars more for most people would have given them office calls and prescriptions and being able to see specialists, whereas now they've got a $6,300 deductible, and they do get to get the preventative care, but they don't get to get hardly anything else. And how is that doing them any good? It saved them $15, but they got to spend 35 years at $15 a month in savings before they hit $6,300 worth of out of pocket, so they can go see a specialist or be admitted to the hospital. So when I first started my little discussion here, I was talking about the law itself. I believe in reading it. It's a very convoluted law. It was designed to fail. I think it's failing a lot quicker than was anticipated. It's the only law that, and I'm a minor in history in college, it's the only law that I'm aware of, and I've done a lot of research, that was ever written so that it could be made up as they went along. And that's in fact what they've done. We've had over 30,000 pages of rules and regulations issued since the law was put in place. And by the way, I've read those too. I don't sleep much at night. And by the way, I did want to introduce myself again. I am David Powell, speaking on behalf of David Powell. But the law has been misrepresented by the media, by everybody out there that's trying to promote it for the most part. It's not the Affordable Care Act. It's the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. I have yet to find any patient protection in there. I've yet to find any affordability. I've yet to find any care, but I have found an act. The plan, when you look at it, really does not help people the way it was intended. And the best description of that I can give you is, had you bought a policy from me in 2013 versus buying it today, the difference is almost a 400% to 500% difference in price for basically the same policy. How has that helped anybody? Well, it's helped a few that didn't have to pay for it, but again, the rest of us have. And so I'm not in favor of the plan. We have better options, and I can go into those in details later.
All right. Thank you, David. Don, you'll have 5 minutes to respond.
My brother Ken has been opposed to the law, and he's opposed to it because it is a terribly inefficient way to cover the numbers of uninsured, that previously uninsured, that are now being covered by the law. It totally disrupted the marketplace in health insurance, and it really stepped in and changed the relationship between the consumer and the insurance company. There has to be better ways to get the uninsured to become insured. Secondly, I can't really speak to how he would change the law. He has said many times that by the time the candidate for insurance commissioner gets into office on January 1, there may be a completely different regime in place. It is very difficult to know exactly what parts of that law will be left. He does recognize that this position is not a legislative position, so we can rant and rave all we want to about whether we like or don't like the law, but the insurance commissioner does not make the law. The insurance commissioner regulates the insurance market in Kansas.
Great. Thank you. We will be moving on to the second question, and you will each have a minute and a half. A minute and a half to respond. So, do you support the expansion of Medicaid? We'll start over here again, or your candidate.
Clark in the legislature, he did not support the expansion of Medicaid. It wasn't simply because it was more federal dollars coming into Kansas, the typical Republican line that you get, but it was because of the strings that were attached with those dollars. Funding being cut by 2017 to 90%, and then being on the hook if the federal government decides not to fill their end of the bargain with paying for it. But he does support the governor's plan for the healthcare compact, which would give those federal dollars back to the states and allow them more leniency and more choice on how those dollars get spent here in Kansas, which I think our representatives here in Kansas would know better how those dollars are spent than someone far off in Washington with all the problems we see coming out of there today, either on the right or on the left.
All right. Thank you, Dustin. David.
I advise the governor not to expand Medicaid, but again, for a very similar reason. It's called maintenance of effort. The law has in it the same maintenance of effort provisions that were attached to the money that we got to fund education a few years ago. We got $500 million, and that, once the federal government stopped funding, the state was required to maintain the effort at the same level when the federal money disappeared. That was also required under this law. What that means is the government says they're going to fund 100% for the first 3 years and 90% for the duration of the expansion. What has in fact taken place is when you look at New York, their shortfall was over $1 billion this year. I don't believe the federal government has the money, even though they can print it. I don't think we have the money to continue to fund at 100% from the federal level, and I believe the federal level will disappear. So the maintenance of effort clause was the reason I didn't support it.
Okay, thank you, David. Don?
Ken has said many times that he does not support the expansion of Medicare, and it is a question of money. The federal government doesn't have the money. The state doesn't have the money. Again, I remind people this is not a legislative position. This is a regulatory position.
All right, thank you. We are going to do one or two more questions, and then we'll move on. I know we have another forum before we end this evening. So there has been controversy about the amount of fees that the insurance commissioner collects. Should the amount of fees be more than what it costs to run the department, and why or why not? And Dustin, we'll let you start again.
Okay. Well, I can't specifically speak to this answer for Clark, but I can give you some details about the fees that the Insurance Commissioner's Office does collect. The Insurance Commissioner's Office has an operating budget of about a little over $30 million, and there's another $70 million that goes directly into the general fund. So the majority of the money that the Insurance Commissioner's Office collects from fees goes back into, paying for their services in the state. I know Clark has said before that one thing that he would change that would limit the fees that we collect from those policies is that ending double taxing on the premiums sold by some companies here in the state, as well as ending predatory taxing on companies that are based in Missouri but have locations here in Kansas that enable them to sell health insurance plans. It seems like we don't need to extend the border war across to insurance companies just because we don't like Missouri, and that just hurts Kansas consumers just to hold a grudge.
All right, thank you, Dustin. David?
Actually, almost every state in the union has a 2% premium tax. We have it, Missouri has it, and so forth. That premium tax collection last year was $153 million. $133 million went into the general fund. So we ran on about a $30 million budget for the state. One of the things I intend to do is probably use a little bit more of that money. I'm going to expand the budget because I feel like we are not serving the people, the consumers, as adequately as we can. I want to go back to remote locations. Why do you have to drive to Topeka if you've got a problem that you need to take care of when you can have an office right here in Wyandotte and put some people to work? The same thing if you live in Syracuse, Kansas, which is almost falling off the border on the west side. And yes, there are things besides Buffalo out that way. But the idea of having remote locations was used extensively years ago and needs to be brought back. So I'm going to put some of that money that's being collected in premium taxes to work for you, the consumer, so that you can use facilities here and get your answers quicker.
All right, thank you, David. Don?
I'm not really qualified to answer that on behalf of Ken.
That is fine. We know that is totally fine. We'll go ahead and do one more question, and then we'll end with the closing remarks. So what can be done to attract more insurers to Kansas while still protecting policyholders?
Well, the simplest thing that can be done, and really the only thing that can be done, is to, first from the insurance commissioner's perspective, is have a more balanced regulatory market. That means having a stabilized regulatory environment that companies cannot necessarily predict or be in your back pocket and know what's coming, but have a fair across-the-board accounting. Right now, the Commissioner's Office has internal guidelines set up for how long it should take them to process new healthcare plans that companies want to sell here in the state. Sometimes it's 3 months, sometimes it's 6 months. That is sometimes not met at all. Sometimes it goes into a year, sometimes 2, sometimes never. And that's something that can definitely change. Outside of that, it's something that has to be done in the legislature, either with what they want to do in lowering taxes for businesses or working with the governor's office. And Clark has that experience working in the legislature and can get things done there from day one.
Thank you, Dustin. David?
I'm currently working with 72 different companies, and I started doing this work a little over a year ago to move to Kansas and bring their employees here or hire local employees to bring their products here and bring their competition here. One of the things that will lower the cost of your insurance in this state is if we have more competition. Our biggest problem right now is that when Kathleen Sebelius was insurance commissioner, she ran about half the companies out of the state, simply by saying we're going to flex our muscle and be the toughest state to do business in. There are companies here in Kansas City that have filed products and after 2 years got tired of playing the game and simply removed them. If they've got the best product in the world and it should be available to you to buy because it's going to do you, the consumer, some good, you should have it. If Missouri gets it, Oklahoma gets it, Colorado gets it, Nebraska does as well, and we don't, what good has that product done? We should have that available. We don't need to be the toughest state in the union to do business. We want to help you, the consumer. That's what the office is all about.
Right. Thank you, David. Don?
Ken Seltzer agrees with these gentlemen on what they've said. You need a stable regulatory environment. You need to reduce the complexity of the rules. You need to do everything you can to help insurance companies come into this market. He has looked at and cited several other states, or at least one other state, where the insurance commissioner, the governor's office, the legislative people got together with educators as well to see who they or how they could entice people into the market with regulatory changes, simplification, with educated workforce, and they have. He likes that model and would try to achieve that in this state.
Great. Thank you all. You will now be given 2 minutes for your closing remarks. Dustin, we'll start over here again.
So as you've heard already before, really the main focus of the Insurance Commissioner's Office is to protect consumers and help them out when they have a claim that's not quite working out with their insurance company. Now, the reason why I know Clark is going to be the right person to help you with any problem you have with your insurance company when a claim is not being processed in the manner that you'd like it to be handled, or you think you're not getting a fair shake, is a story that he recently told me while we were driving in the car. He received a phone call from a woman, went on for quite a few minutes, and then I asked him who that was, and she said, oh, it was just a friend who I'd been helping out with a claim that she had tried to file. This woman had her son tragically die in a car accident, and for some odd reason, the insurance company wouldn't pay out on her claim. They said it was because there wasn't an autopsy. She went through all their policies to get down the road and try to get it resolved, and they still stonewalled her. So Clark went with her to the Insurance Commissioner's Office, introduced her to the right people, and they got the issue solved. Now that's what the Insurance Commissioner's Office is there to do. And I can guarantee you that just if you're not a friend of Clark's, which it may seem that he only helps out his friends, that's not the case. He's going to help out every single Kansan he possibly can and provide the same level of service he would to anyone he meets on the street. And that's why you should vote for Clark Schultz on August 5th.
Thank you, Dustin. David?
The job of the insurance commissioner is to regulate, advocate, educate. Those are the three cornerstones of the insurance department. I've done all those for years, but I'm also going to bring innovation to the office. I want you to think about something. Every one of you has insurance in here of some form. Hopefully you all got car insurance driving over here as well. But when you buy your insurance, you don't go to somebody on the street, you don't go to a career politician, you don't go to the executive for an insurance company. You go to a professional that knows insurance and has credentials in the area that you need to work with. The same should be true for the insurance department. You need to work with somebody who knows insurance, knows all lines of insurance, because it's more than just health insurance. It's more than just auto or home. It's the whole gamut. I have been licensed in all major lines of insurance. I can hit the ground running because I know insurance and I'm passionate about what I'm doing. The main thing that I guess the last thing I want to say is I had a 14-year-old ask me to tell her in 2 words why I'm running for the office. And my 2 words are real simple. I care. I care about you. I care about your families. I care about your businesses. I care about the state of Kansas. I want you to put my 37 years experience as an independent agent in all major lines of insurance to work for you and your neighbors. I want to make sure the insurance companies keep their promise to you. I'm David Powell. I'm asking for your vote August 5th, next Tuesday. Thank you.
Thank you, David. And we'll end over there with Don.
Ken Seltzer wants to bring sound business practices to this very relevant department in Kansas. He is a CPA with over 30 years of insurance experience, both at the direct and as reinsurance broker. So he has a lot of exposure to a lot of different lines. He has managed businesses as an entrepreneur and as part of a company. And so he certainly knows what is faced by consumers and insurance companies and the insurance brokers. And he wants to make sure this market has a stable regulatory environment and an environment that will encourage insurance companies to come into the market and hopefully to lower the rates, or at least not increase the rates in this market.
I want to thank all of our candidates and representatives for Insurance Commissioner for attending tonight and for your thoughtful answers. We have one more forum to go.